Hello and welcome everyone to the final day of our virtual forum on linking wild foods, biodiversity, and forest-based livelihoods towards an outlook of inclusive food systems in Asia to 2030. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Christina. I'm from Insight Pact, and I will be your technical facilitator today. So if you have any questions about Zoom or if you require any technical assistance at all, please feel free to privately message me for help. We will be recording this session today, and we are also going to be conducting it in English with interpretations available. For today, the interpretations available are in Tagalog, Bahasa Indonesia, and Tamil. So to listen to the session in the language of your choice, please click the globe button at the bottom of your Zoom screen controls and select the language that you prefer. We are also expecting a more intimate discussion today. So attendees, you will be promoted as a panelist. So you will all be in the same room as our panelist. Therefore, we are not going to be using the Q&A box. We are going to be using the chat box as the main modem of communication. For your questions, feel free to put it in the chat box, and we will be keeping track of those questions to ensure that our speakers are able to get to them today. Yes, as mentioned, we are going to be recording this session. So recorders, please feel free to begin recording. And with that, I'm happy to pass the floor on to Chrissy, who will be our moderator for today.
Thank you, Christina, and welcome to all our participants and all our speakers and everyone who has decided to join our webinar, Slow and Sustainable, The Future of Food, a session that's co-organized by NTFP-EP and Slow Food Networks, showcasing wild foods of Asia. So I'm Chrissy Guerrero. I'm an advisor at the NTFP-EP of NTFP Asia, and we're very happy to have you all join us today for an afternoon of discovering best practices and lessons towards a more sustainable way of producing, marketing, and consuming good, clean, and fair food. This is a pioneering event, as I mentioned, co-organized by NTFP-EP Network and the Slow Food Networks in Asia, where we're highlighting specifically India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. For those of you who are just joining us today, this is part of the week-long virtual forum, Linking Wild Foods, Biodiversity, and Forest-Based Livelihoods towards an Outlook of Inclusive Food Systems in Asia to 2030, which closes today. This is made possible with the support from SIANI, or the Swedish International Agricultural Network Initiative. And our side event today is also registered as an event in the Terra Madre platform. We are live today on Zoom, but this is also being live streamed on Facebook via the NTFP-EP Asia and NTFP-EP Philippines Facebook pages, as well as the Bukluran page. For our welcome remarks, I'm happy to call on our Executive Director, Femi Pinto, to deliver our message. Femi, would you like to join us?
Hi. Good afternoon to everyone participating here on Zoom and viewing from our live stream. As Chrissy mentioned, this event is part of a week-long forum organized by the NTFP-EP Asia with Siani. This forum focuses on the theme of wild foods, biodiversity, and livelihood with attention to South and Southeast Asia. It has been a rich discussion, very positive turnout, lots of networking going on the sides. Most of all, there is an excitement around the theme, a reinvigoration of connections, and an energy for collaboration and partnership, especially so in a time of pandemic, adding on to already threats that have been around pre-pandemic: climate change, biodiversity loss, health, food insecurity, economic development, deforestation, modernization. And there are local manifestations of this and subsequent impact to Indigenous peoples and local communities' everyday life. We have seen physical movements of people, and we've heard migration trends have shifted during the pandemic. Broken social structures, including knowledge about forests and transfer of this knowledge within the family or community. Preferences have changed and practices are transforming due to various influences and factors such as forces of policy and governance that has shifted excessive focus on commodification and production, resulting in new dependencies and failed health. These past days, we also have talked about mainstream agriculture having de-linked food from nutrition, culture, and identity. Community staples traditionally from the wild have been replaced by crops that dominate the world's food production, like wheat, maize, rice, potatoes, and others, even genetically modified and other food products reliant on synthetic ingredients, so common off the shelf at cheap prices. All across our region, we heard examples where the local foods have been said to have been pushed aside, many of which more nutritious and healthy. And these wild and local foods reflect a beautiful culture of reciprocity, sharing, respect for nature. Culture and identity rooted in the knowledge and practice about it and around food, like food gathering, harvesting, processing, and preserving them. These form part of the silver linings that we have seen this week that we are so encouraged by, including the passion of the women and youth, and I'm sure the slow food communities we have invited today. Knowledge, while vulnerable, and there are fears that they may have disappeared or are disappearing, and the youth no longer know much about their heritage or heirloom food, for example. But yet these knowledge seem to be still available from the speakers that we have invited this week. And again, for today, resources, while declining, can still be found, and there are thriving practices in rotational farms, in food rituals and festivals because of the resilience of tradition, leadership, and Indigenous peoples and local communities' food sovereignty. This meeting is one of the silver linings, showing an emerging network of slow food communities and connections joined together in this exciting event that the organizers have prepared for us. Post Wild Foods Week, our aim is to continue the intentions of this initiative, which is to raise the awareness for forests and people with a focus on wild foods, to consolidate key messages about Indigenous and wild food systems, particularly so that it is included and considered and respected and protected, particularly at the time when attention is drawn to discuss and decide on the future of food, climate, and biodiversity. It will be our desire that we continue to build upon the passions and the vision of the slow food communities we have here today. Greetings again, and thanks to the Terra Madre Network for joining together with NTFP to bring you this session. I wish us all a good meeting. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Femi, for reminding us as well of the context outside and the fast lifestyle and the fast food that permeates mainstream life and mainstream economies. But today we choose to highlight the counter narrative that Femi has also shared, which we've been emphasizing through our main events as well as our side events, and focusing on initiatives of the youth as well as initiatives of different Indigenous peoples and local communities around the region. So thank you, Femi. And as we share this stage as well with the slow food community. I'd like to introduce a member of the slow food movement, um, Mr. Dai Tabayashi. He's a member of the Slow Food Indigenous Advisory Board. And he is also a coordinator for sustainable societies in Okinawa, Japan, and has been working on human resource developments and food educations. As an active member, as an active Indigenous youth leader of Slow Food, he has been leading a slow food convivium in Okinawa. He also is a 2019 fellow of the UN Indigenous Fellowship Program held in Geneva, organized by the OHCHR on Indigenous peoples and human rights. So he'll be telling us more about slow food and other aspects of their movement. So without further ado, Dai, I invite you to share more with us.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. This is Dai Kitabayashi, and I'm a Miyaku, which is part of Ryukyu Indigenous people located in Okinawa, Japan. Thank you very much, NTFP-EP, for inviting us to hold this awesome event. And I'm also thankful for our ancestral and natural spirits to get us connected even virtually. And today I would like to briefly introduce about slow food and also how Indigenous people and slow food work together. So let me share my screen a little bit. Can you see my screen? Okay. So, and I'm a member of advisory board of Slow Food Indigenous Peoples Network. So Slow Food is a global grassroots organization founded in 1989 to prevent the disappearance of local food cultures and traditions. Since its beginning, Slow Food has grown into a global movement involving millions of people in over 163 countries. And the Slow Food envisions a world in which all people can access and enjoy food that is good, clean, and fair. So good means a quality, flavorsome, and healthy food. Clean means production that does not harm the environment. And fair means accessible prices for consumers and fair conditions and pay for producers. And in order to achieve that, we have three main pillars of our actions. One is defend biodiversity. Two is educate the wider world. And three, sustain slow food efforts and influence the public and private sectors. So in terms of preserving biodiversity, we have several projects going on, and so many different communities around the world are working on these projects. And also, as an Indigenous youth, I would like to emphasize how important to protect the biodiversity that Indigenous people preserves is because Indigenous peoples who are only less than 5% of the world population are living on up to 22% of the world's land surface, hold 80% of the planet's biodiversity. So this means Indigenous peoples almost hold 80% of the planet's biodiversity. So when it comes to protecting biodiversity, we cannot move forward without talking with Indigenous people how we want to work with. That's how Slow Food start working with Indigenous people. And Slow Food is supporting Indigenous people's network to bring Indigenous people's voices to the forefront of the debate on food and culture. Because we believe defending biodiversity also means defending cultural diversity, the rights of Indigenous people to control our land, to grow food and breed livestock, to hunt, fish, and gather according to our own needs and decisions is fundamental in order to protect our livelihoods and defend the biodiversity of native animal breeds, and plant varieties, including wild plants. And not only that, we believe to protect biodiversity equals to protect our forests, mountains, oceans, rivers, in short, our lands, and this can be the savior of climate crisis. So we have been working with so many different indigenous groups and communities to protect the biodiversity and food culture through Arc of Taste, Presidium, and so on, the different projects Slow Food has. So, and in many cases, indigenous people's food culture involves wild foods. And recently, I worked with Slow Food community Ainu women for the safeguard of Ainu food culture. Uh, Most of you probably know about Ainu, but Ainu is the other indigenous group in Japan. And we successfully nominated 7 wild foods to the Arc of Taste. And now we're working on a brochure project to educate public on those wild foods that you can see in the screen right now and advocate for the importance of conserving the nature. So I believe indigenous peoples in Asia has so many various unique food culture. So it would be amazing that we can create Asia Indigenous Arc of Taste project or something in near future so that we can all be on the same page and protect as a team. And I'm sure this a week-long virtual forum nurtures the understanding of the importance of each of our work and strengthen the network of great activists in Asia and the world. Hope we stay connected and work together for a greater achievement on protecting the nature and our cultures. Thank you very much and looking forward to collaborating with you all very soon.
Thank you very much, Dai. And and for stressing, of course, the link between these wild foods and indigenous community and culture and the context that they are found in. We're very excited as well to work beyond South and Southeast Asia and work with North Asia communities as well. So from your introduction and your place in Japan, we travel further south to start sharing and hearing from our other partners from the slow food community and from the NTFP-EP network in telling us more about the importance and the value and the stories around the wild foods found in their countries and in their localities. So today we first start with the Philippines. We have 2 speakers today, but we first start with Ramon Chinchin Uy Jr. from the slow food community of Negros Island, the famous Negros Island, the organic island in the Philippines. To share more about Chinchin, he is an organic farmer, social entrepreneur, and owner of organic cafe business Fresh Start, part of the fair trade movement, and also on the board of NTFP Philippines. Before I pass the baton, I was asked earlier to ask the Tamil interpreter to please unmute the mic. Has that already been taken care of, or? Yes, I think that's now been taken care of. Thank you very much. And Chinchin, we look forward to hearing to your story. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chrissy, and good afternoon to everyone listening. So my name is Ramon Uy Jr. I wear 3 hats right now. I'll be wearing. Let me start my presentation. Uh, just a moment. I have technical difficulties, so I cannot open my. There. Okay. So again, I'm Ramon Jr. and I'm representing non-timber forest. I'm a trustee of the non-timber forest products exchange program in Philippines, and I'm also a member of the Slow Food community of Negros Island, promoting and preserving traditional food of Negros Island. So next slide, please. So I'll be presenting the wild foods here in Negros Occidental. So the first back, please, black. So I'll be talking about batuan. So batuan is a native. It's a wild food here in Negros, and it's actually one of the best for us. One of the ingredient that is really unique in our region. So batuan is a souring agent. So we use it in all the Negros cooking. So this is the main ingredient. This is also an arc of taste. Um, it's really already declining the supply of this, and it is primarily can be found in the forest areas of Negros Occidental. Next, please. So this batuan, for in the photo, it's the batuan in Sitio Sibato in Silay City. It's an ancestral domain by the Sibatu Indigenous Peoples Community. So as you can see, this batuan tree is already 100 years old. To the left, yeah. Next, please. There. So we have in Negros we have four kinds of batuan. We have the bagulan in the upper left. It's the green batuan, and the limbaho, which is a mix of the green and the red, and the morado, which is the red batuan, and the susung dalaga, or the women's breast. It's the last batuan. Next slide, please. So batuan is really famous for Negrense dishes. Like for example, in the left, you can see it's the kansi. Kansi is a soup dish here in Negros. So the main ingredient that you use in saring this is the batuan, and this one is very famous, and it's actually recognized by the World Street Food as one of the best street food in the world, street food dish in the world. No? And to your right is the famous lechon. No? So it's every Filipino's favorite. But what makes our lechon different is we use batuan as stuffing and lemongrass. That's why our lechon. That's what makes our lechon taste different. So batuan is also used in different kinds of soup for souring. Next, please. There. So we also use it for stuffed chicken, roasted chicken. So you can see on the left, that's the ingredient. That's how we make the lechon manok, or roasted chicken here and using native chicken and stuffed with batuan. Next, please. And I'll show you the video this is the video we presented during the Terra Madre Salud Negro Gusto 2020. So it's a story about the batuan in Sitio Sibato. Play, please.
Hi, Ramon. I'm so sorry, but I don't seem to be able to play the video. Perhaps we can go through the slides, and then
Yeah, okay.
and you can
no problem.
try sharing your screen again. Okay.
Okay. So this one, it's another wild food here in Negros. It's called kadios. Kadios is a bean, so it's a legume, and it is also another distinct dish here in ingredient that's from Negros. Next, please. There. So kadios is primarily planted for, can be found in the wild, and it's usually planted in the contour areas to help with soil erosion, and at the same time it helps fix nitrogen in the soil. So it's a legume, and it's also a part of the arc of taste in and it's already becoming this is already disappearing, no? So that's why it's very important that we preserve this ingredient. Next, please. Yeah. To your left, it's the most famous dish, no? We call it KBL, or Kadyos Baboy Langka. So baboy is pork, Kadyos pork, and Langka. Langka is jackfruit. So it's really one of the most unique dishes that you can. It's a really specialty dish that can be found here in Western Visayas, especially here in Negros. And to the right is the Kadyos frap. So we developed it. It's a modern use of the Kadyos. So what we did was we toasted the Kadyos, and it is a nutty flavor, and then we use it in mixing with coffee. So it's really good, no? If to as a drink. Next, please. So in Negros, we can see around the Arc of Taste is a catalog of heritage food that are already disappearing. So here in Negros, we can find around 23 of them, and most of them are wild. So next, please. Oh, so there's something wrong with the slide. So next, can you do the before? Back, please. Back. Next. Okay. So okay. So this one is turmeric. So the turmeric, it's one of the arc of taste. So it's really healthy. What they do is they powder this and then use it as a drink. In the back of the slide, so it's Criollo cacao. So Criollo cacao is really the white bean cacao. So that's really the an arc of taste, and it's really an heirloom cacao that can be found also in the wild. Next, please. So this one is the rag chicken. So the rag chicken is also from the Western Visayas, and this is our native chicken breed that can be found here, and also a part of the arc of taste. Next, please. And so here are some of the wild foods that can be found in Negros. So yotokon, these are not yet in the arc of taste. So yotokon, tugis, libas, organic coffee, wild raspberries, labog or the wild roselle, wild honey, tauri beans, langkawas, and bangkiling. Next, please. So this one, so we partnered with a distillery, a local distillery in Manila. So they make gin from the libas fruit. It's a wild. If you will use libas if there's no batuan. So we use it also as a souring agent. And but one of our friends from Manila, Kalel Demetrio, they made a gin out of the libas, and it tastes really good. So they made it a gin. And also the yotokon. Yotokon is a family of the ginger, and it's a mix of passion fruit and ginger. The taste, yeah. Next, please. And so this one is the tugis. This can also be found in the wild. So as you can see, Chef Nino Laos from Agimat, he also made chips from the tugis. It's also part of the ginger family. Yeah. Next, please. And so on the right, it's langkawas. Langkawas is another family of ginger. So it's what we use for the dipping sauce in the inasal. If you eat the inasal, there's the dipping sauce. We call it sinamak, or the vinegar. So what we do is what makes our vinegar distinct is the langkawas. Next, please. Yan. So we also have shade-grown coffee that can be found in the forest of Negros Island. What makes our coffee different? It's because it's grown in the forest. So it grows slower and the flavor is much more intense than the conventionally grown coffee. Next, please. And last, we have the honey. So I have a few slides there, but it's not. No. So we also partner with the non-timber forest products in doing wild honey, following the sustainable honey harvesting standards set by the non-timber forest products. So thank you, everyone, and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Chinchin. Did you want to try your video again, or if you still have difficulties, you might try working on it and we can show it at the very end.
I think
If
I can share it already. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There.
Mayad-ayad nga pag-abot, kaya kanamon. This is the Panay Bukidnon way of saying welcome to our community. Panay Bukidnon originates from the mountain part of Kalinog and Lambunao, Iloilo. That's why our ethnic group is called as Panay Bukidnon. Our community is proud of one of our native species that we are using in our food. We call it batuan. There is a century-old batuan here and only can be found here in Sitio Sibato.
1990, among pagkainin sa mga duta dire. So nagkita ko nga batuan nga gamay paginhawa na nam kagsubong at edad na 30 years.
Although some of the people here engage in charcoal making, but they are not cut batuan trees because it can contribute economically to them. And maybe while it is being plenty here, maybe there is a purpose for it. We also earn money in these fruits because if there are some agri-trade fair, we sell it. It's very interesting and it's very nice because we are the only people's organization that sell batuan. We use these fruits as pampaasim on our food. It's good for sinigang. We also use in pinamalhan na isda. There are 4 types of batuan here in our community. There is a green batuan, red batuan, and white batuan. And the other one is flat batuan. There is also a round batuan. Batuan being organic and native in this place, so we encourage every one of us to use the batuan and not the commercial ingredients. Batuan also is very helpful to us because it bear fruits where people do not have enough income because it is not yet a harvest season. If people do not have enough harvest, they gather batuan and sell to the city or the market. We able to identify and estimate the fruit trees of batuan in this area because each of the family in this community take care of these fruits. I'm Bienvenido Axi, tribal leader of Sibato Panay Bukidnon ethnic group, and I'm happy to be part of the Tierra Madre 2020. Our food, our planet, our future.
Thank you, Chin,
Thank you.
and also for Manong Bien, who I haven't seen in a long time. Good to see he's happy and behind great movement. And for those, this is a great film. And for those who would like to see more, please follow Slow Food Negros on Facebook, where they show a lot of excellent videos and stories about slow food on their island. From Negros, we move further west to another important island in the Philippines, the island of Palawan, which is 600 kilometers long, and also one with a rich rainforest, but is also very much under threat. So you can imagine how their wild food is also under threat. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, John Vincent Toto Colili, who we call Toto, and who is from Brooks Point in the southern part of Palawan. He will be speaking on fruits and spices and other wild foods. He's the co-founder of SNAKK, or Samahan ng Mga Nagkakaisang Katutubong Kabataan, which means the Association of the United Indigenous Youth in Brooks Point, Palawan. He studied his degree is in the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science at the Palawan State University. And with that, I ask Toto to join us and to share more about the wild foods in their area.
Hello, good afternoon. Ayun, I'm Toto. So today I'll be sharing about fruits, spices, and other things that we have in Palawan and the Philippines. So next slide, please. So before we start on the
Toto, just a moment. Can everybody hear him, or should he be speaking louder?
Wait. So I'm a bit camera shy, so I'll be just first turning my video off. Okay. So hello. Can you hear me clearly now? Hello.
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay. So
thank you.
Before we proceed to the discussion, I would just like to say that because right now we are under some restrictions from the pandemic, and actually it's election season here in Palawan because we're having a plebiscite. So some of the, or most of the spices, fruits, and crops that I'll be presenting today is pretty the most common thing, or the most common crops that we have on our day-to-day activities. So next slide, please. So yeah, so just a quick introduction. So the Philippines is a culturally diverse country. So it was estimated that there are 14 to 17 million indigenous peoples belonging to at least 110 ethno-linguistic groups. So because of this huge diversity, we expect that there are various cultures, traditions, and indigenous knowledge that have been developed, of course, for hundreds or thousands of years. So the Philippines have a tropical and maritime climate. So the coolest months falls in January and the warmest, of course, in May. So one of the most important climatic event that we have is, of course, the rainfall, because we have large quantities of rainforest and, of course, farms and fruits and crops that highly depends on rainfall. So I mentioned this because actually the weather and the diversity is actually the one that makes or creates this diversity of forest foods that we have. So next slide, please. So there are various uses of traditional herbs, fruits, and trees in the landscape of the Philippines. So this is based on my previous interactions with other youth from other tribes, and of course from my elders and from my ancestors, or those people that are have been here before me. So first, of course, the first use, we have the, this is just five, but this is not everything, okay? So first, we are using these traditional herbs as traditional medicine for our daily subsistence, for recreational, for example, for smoking, dyes. Then again, we have livelihood, and of course, for construction. Next. So now I'm gonna show you the this is just some pretty common herbs, fruits, and trees that we have. Okay, first one we have is the, okay, next slide, is what we call the kunit, or just what Kuya Chin Chin explained earlier, also commonly known as turmeric plant. So the spice derived from the turmeric plant, its roots is called the turmeric. So it is frequently used or is being applied medicinally. And also, because of its yellow color, it is also being used as a form of dye or food color. Of course, our friends from Indonesia and Malaysia know this because, as far as I know, it is also being utilized in curry. So next slide. So next is lakwas, also known as langkawas. It is a rhizomatous species. It is commonly mistaken for ginger. Actually, I remember as a kid, one time I was almost hit by my parents because instead of ginger, I got langkawas. So langkawas primarily have medicinal effects. It promotes digestion and alleviates respiratory diseases from common colds and cough. So it is also being applied topically to induce or cure common skin diseases such as ringworms or any other skin ailments. Next. So next we have is the batbat. Batbat is actually a species of palm. It is commonly found in tropical jungles, not just here in the Philippines or not just here in Palawan. So it is being utilized also as construction materials. So because of its leaves, so you can use it as a roofing material for some hats or some gardens. So the sap found deep beneath the trunk of the tree can be turned into various traditional delicacies. So I already seen it being used in three different kinds of dishes, but it can be more. Next. Next is what they call the paray, or in down areas, they call it palay. So, but it is different. So, paray is technically the heirloom rice. So, it have wide-ranging uses. Aside from being staple food, it is also being used to make traditional wine for other indigenous communities. So, paray uh, have a very delighting smell when cooked. It has a very different texture from the commercial rice that we have. Um, And also, a variety called maragkat is the centerpiece for most traditional delicacies. This heirloom rice is very special because it can technically turn into anything with just few changes in preparation and processes it have to undergo. If you put it in a bamboo shoot, add coconut milk and cook it for 4 hours, you have the lot. You wrap it into special leaves, ferment it overnight, and you'll have a mulmul. Ground it, dry it, and store it for a month, and you'll have a yeast. So, paray is actually at the very center of the indigenous food culture that we have uh, as a Palawan. So, next slide, please. So the sanglay or kamote, sweet potato, it can be found anywhere in the Philippines. So I've been in various communities. I've been with my friends, other friends from other tribes, and of course they eat kamote. So as you can see, it have different colors, and from down below, from the downlands of our community up to the very top, you can find people growing kamote. So it is a very good source of nutrition and have a very delighting taste. So also the tops or the kamote tops can also be consumed or partner with other dishes. Next slide. Next slide, please. So before I proceed, I saw someone. Yes, the langkawas or lakwas is also known as galanjal in English. Next is the taluk, or in common terms, kamoteng kahoy or cassava. So these are pretty common. It's actually being intermixed with in the uma. If you can say, if you can remember during the previous slide on the paray, that is what we call the uma, where the paray or the rice grows. They plant it along the peripheries, or after during the fallow season, they plant it to the fallow areas so that it can regenerate the ground. And also, aside from the roots, the tops is also being harvested and consumed. It is a good source of nutrition and it's very, very easy to cook. So if you're clearing some areas for production, some people just dig some of these cassava roots, then just put them in fire and consume them so that it can fill our stomachs and give us nutrition to do more work. Then the next one, I'm sorry, we don't have a picture for this, but the usaw, if you're a Southeast Asian, of course, you must know the rambutan. Uh, I think it is being called as lychee in English. So on the highlands, we have what we call the usaw. It have a various types, including one with hard and dark peeling, and the other one resembles the common fruit. However, one thing that differentiates it, from uh, the common or the one that we sell on the market is that it have a sour, sweet taste, and it leaves some sort of long-lasting tingling effect in your tongue once you consume it. Then next, it is not actually a spice or a fruit, but the salang. It is actually a resinous tree. Uh, its resin is being used as an incense to wave off harmful insects and also to ward off evil spirits. So uh, that's the end of the presentation for the some of the common traditional foods that we have. The next one, I'll be talking about the role of the indigenous food to the health and well-being of our indigenous community. So if you can see at the picture, the picture below, the one on the bamboo shoots that we are cooking, that is actually the lot. That is one of the delicacies derived from the paray. At the top, that is actually the maragkat being processed into lot. So back to the topic. So indigenous foods up to this day is the main source of nutrition for many tribal communities. Here in Palawan, and in many other parts of the Philippines. So aside from that, numerous of these plant species, like for example, the galanjal, the turmeric, and many others, have herbal or medicinal applications. Therefore, these are very important really for the health. So the nutrition that can be acquired from these indigenous foods allows many indigenous communities to conduct day-to-day activities, and therefore we can produce our own goods, we can provide for ourselves, and if we can provide for ourselves, of course, it will create a healthy community. So next. So, what is the correlation between the indigenous foods and cultural preservation? According to many of our elders, indigenous foods and other indigenous cultures cannot exist without the other. So, indigenous food itself is at the very core of many indigenous culture. For our culture, for our tradition, yes, it is very true. Because at the center of our tradition, at the center of our ceremonies, are these foods. We make a celebration or a festival for our rice during the planting of rice. We make festivals during the harvesting and many others. So most indigenous traditions and cultures are tied to the ancestral lands. And as we know, people tend to stay on places that can efficiently sustain them. So if the place is healthy, if the place can produce enough food for the people, they will continually live there. And if the IPs or the indigenous peoples, if us, continually manage to live on our own homes, we can properly maintain our culture. The next one, since we are talking about uh, food, about indigenous food, we can't also neglect the part of the youth in the preservation of this indigenous food system that we have. As a youth and as a representative of many other youth in Palawan and also our partner communities and NTFP partners and other youths that my friends also. So as we said, there are complex knowledge and certain level of sensitivity required for growing and gathering of indigenous foods. So this knowledge, this sensitivity that we have, um, this is uh, has been evolved for many, many years. Without this, the very existence of the food system can be at risk. So therefore, the transfer of knowledge from one generation to another is a vital aspect in the continuity of the indigenous food system. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Toto, for your sharing and for making time as well. We know that you are very busy with the plebiscite tomorrow that may also have impact, grave impact on cultures, forests, and foods in Palawan.
Yes.
I see, good luck. I see that in the chat is very active, as you can also, the others can also see, in terms of the various varieties of wild food that are also found not only in the Philippines, but in parts of Borneo. We know as well that Palawan and Borneo were one part of one plate before the plates decided to move sometime a long time ago. And I hope that discussions like this will go beyond being online and that we can exchange more, especially among the youth. And that's why we're very glad that Toto and Dai and others are here to continue the process of conservation and also traditional use of these wild foods. So we cross the ocean, the ocean and the seas to the Indonesian islands, but not so far from Palawan. I remember traveling to Palawan in the south, and we used to talk about those islands that we barely see, parts of Borneo. Um, And we traveled first to northern Kalimantan, and we meet there the Krayan Slow Food community, the newest slow food community in Indonesia. And we have here with us several, and we'll be calling on them. We hope that the signal from where they are is good so that they may share with us, but they do have a video prepared as well. So just to introduce them, on the island of Borneo from northern Kalimantan is the Krayan Slow Food community. The Krayan are the highlands where farmers, men and women, with local government and traditional leaders have declared the area devoted to traditional and organic agriculture and protection of local varieties of rice and other cereals. Krayan is an example of food systems that respect the environment and cultural identity of the people, where they preserve and promote traditional food and ways in the highlands and other parts of North Kalimantan, including Malaysia. The initiative was part of the agenda of a trans-border community-based organization called Formadat, the Alliance of the Indigenous Peoples of the Highlands of Borneo. Formadat was one of the Equator Prize winners in 2015. So with that, we invite Pa Gat. Are you here with us to share on behalf of the Slow Food Krayan community? We know he was traveling on a speedboat to get to a place where he could have signal and share with us. Christina, I know you saw him here. Do you still see him, or maybe the signal? Did he drop?
He might have dropped off. Yeah.
He might have dropped. Okay, then let's go to Pa Elias. Okay, let's go to Pa Elias. Pa, are you here? Pa, tolong buka mic. Okay, so while, are you here, Pa, or should I play video? Oh, there he is. Okay. Hello, Pa. I'm worried that you might lose signal later. I'm wondering, Christina, would it be a good idea to let him speak now, or
I would
should play the video first?
Suggest the video first, which
All
is
right, okay.
straightforward, and yeah.
All right, so we'll play the video first, and Pa Elias, please stay on that spot where you have a very good signal and you have your indigenous clothes on, and you can tell us more about your culture and your food very soon. Christina, would you like to play the video for us? Thank you.
Kalau tengayeng itu bahannya sebenarnya ada di lingkungan kita. Jadi semuanya tersedia di lingkungan kita. Itu direbus kemudian ditumbuk-tumbuk sampai hancur seperti itu. Jadi simpel aja masaknya seperti itu. Dipetik kemudian ditumbuk-tumbuk. Biasanya ada yang tanpa beras, ada juga ditambah dengan beras. Agak-agak licin, agak-agak berlendir seperti itu. Jadi kalau kita masak dia akan seperti makanan berlendir seperti itu. Itu termasuk makanan favorit. Itu iya, makanan nenek moyang yang menjadi favorit sampai sekarang. Ya, karena ada beberapa bahan lokal yang sudah tidak favorit di daerah kita, tetapi tengayeng itu tetap menjadi makanan favorit kita dari dulu sampai sekarang. Lubak layak itu kalau di Jawa itu kita kenal ada lontong, tetapi pengolahannya berbeda. Jadi ada beras, kita buat banyak airnya, kemudian dibiarkan mendidih, kemudian ditumbuk-tumbuk juga sampai hancur. Setelah itu dibiarkan kering, dan setelah itu baru dibungkus. Daun pisang boleh, daun bakuk boleh, ada banyak daun-daun yang di sekitar kita juga dipakai untuk membungkus nasi itu. Tetapi yang populer itu daun pisang. Itu makanan kita sehari-hari, iya sehari-hari iya. Karena orang-orang di masyarakat kita itu makanan mereka. Kalau nasi yang keras itu sebenarnya ada juga, tapi yang lebih disuka itu lubak layak. Kalau dia bitter itu artinya sayuran itu dicampur beras sedikit. Kalau dia bitter tengayan artinya tengayan itu ditambah beras sedikit. Kalau bitter berudu ditambah beras. Jadi pokoknya kalau dia bitter apapun dia itu ditambahkan dengan beras sedikit. Jadi semacam bubur lah kayak gitu. Tetapi itu dimakan pakai nasi, bukan dimakan begitu saja. Jadi bitter itu sayur, bukan untuk dimakan seperti bubur ayam, bukan. Kalau pakis merah itu di seluruh daerah kami itu ada. Bahkan di sekitar rumah, di belakang rumah, depan rumah, di mana-mana itu ada. Jadi kita tinggal petik aja, kemudian kita olah seperti itu. Nah biasanya kalau kita di sini mengolahnya, kita masukkan di bambu. Macam-macam biasanya campurannya, bisa ikan sawah yang kecil, bisa juga atau sayuran yang lain dimasukkan di bambu, kemudian kita bakar dengan api kecil. Ya, jadi semacam lemang lah gitu. Pakis merah ini agak kalat-kalat sedikit gitu, berbeda dengan pakis yang biasa yang hijau. Nah kalau pakis merah ini dia agak kalat-kalat rasanya. Jadi agak bilang pahit juga enggak juga gitu ya. Dibilang iya berbeda lah rasanya. Agak pahit dikit gitu, tapi enggak pahit juga gitu. Teluk samu itu terbuat dari ikan atau daging babi gitu. Kemudian diawetkan. Biasanya kami pakai nasi sama garam begitu, kemudian disimpan mungkin sebulan lebih lah. Dia menjadi asam seperti itu. Tetapi yang lebih favorit dulu itu dimasukkan di bambu, kemudian ditanam di dalam sawah. Ditanam dalam sawah, dibiarkan sebulan seperti itu, kemudian dia menjadi asam, sangat-sangat asam, dan bahan makan itu tahan sampai 1 tahun. Proses itu cara nenek moyang kami mengawetkan makanan, karena zaman dulu kan kulkas tidak ada gitu, supaya makan itu tetap awet, jadi mereka buat seperti itu. Ya. Jadi teluk bahasa kami di sini, bisa terbuat dari daging, bisa terbuat dari ikan. Tetapi kita lebih suka ikan karena ikan kan selalu ada di sekitar kita. Busak pahit itu kami menamakan itu anggrek tanah. Itu selalu ada di sekitar rumah kita. Seperti di sekitar ini itu banyak itu dia. Jadi memang dia pahit. Dan itu makanan nenek moyang kami dari dulu. Itu jadi sayuran. Biasanya kita tumis, campur ikan, campur daging gitu. Biasanya kami penyedap rasa itu ada memang dari hutan, ada daun khusus seperti itu. Bahasa kami itu afak fulung. Ya, jadi ada daun memang khusus dipakai untuk menyedap rasa makanan itu. Jadi biasanya daun itu kita masukkan di dalam sayuran seperti itu. Banyak sebenarnya yang sudah mulai hilang. Memang makanan-makanan nenek moyang dulu ada banyak yang tidak tercantum di situ. Ya, banyak sekali makanan yang sudah mulai hilang. Itu sebabnya kita mau mengangkat itu kembali, kita olah dalam bentuk yang modern supaya orang suka seperti itu.
Thank you very much. The video makes me not only hungry, but wishing we could go into the field very soon. Okay, so I don't want to take Pak Elias's airtime. Silakan, Pak Elias.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Elias Yesaya, spokesman of Slow Food Community Ryan. The highlands of Ryan are a place of rich agro biodiversity and unique products. The result of sustainable and wise interaction between the indigenous people and the nature of the highlands, mountain salt, forest fruits, local varieties of rice, adan, millet, sorghum, wild food. The culinary tradition of the Korean highlands, Lok Kanantau, or our food, is based on the use of cultivated and wild foods from our forests, river, and rice fields. The food we eat and the way we prepare food is very much part of our culture, traditions, and ethnic identity. In 2006, the indigenous people of the Croyan Highlands declared the area of highlands for organic traditional cultivation. This initiative is also supported by the local governments that issued of formal regulation. This is a good example of how traditional agriculture can also become a model of environmentally and culturally friendly agriculture and practice of a future. That's all, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Pa Elias. Glad that your signal was able to hold for you to share us that message. Pa Elias does not only know a lot about wild food, but he's also a bamboo flute musician, and I think one of the leaders of their cultural program there in Krayan. Thank you for being with us today. There are these indigenous communities with such a richness of food to share with us, and many who in Java or other parts of Indonesia are not familiar with, and therefore do not appreciate or do not know that some of these foods might be endangered. And therefore, several organizations, cooperatives, women's groups, and other associations have come together to form what we call the Parara restaurant and store, the Parara Indigenous Ethical Store, which will be the next presentation of my colleague Tammy. And you'll also find some of the rice, the mountain salt, and the millets and the sorghum from Krayan in this store in Jakarta, so that we can also share, so people understand in the urban areas about the richness of this food, the links to culture, and how collectively we can support these communities that help maintain them. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Teofila Tami Aris Praptami. So Tami, as she is called by her friends, is well known for her work, especially on forest honey. Actually, for almost a decade, I think she worked with the Forest Honey Network Indonesia, or GMHI. She also worked on several standards of NTFPs in Indonesia. She's also a trainer of small medium enterprises, and most recently she joins the Parara restaurant and store as an operations supervisor. She also cooks very well, and she will share a recipe at the end of her presentation. So I invite you, Tami, to share with us your presentation this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tami. Thank you, thank you to the organizer for inviting me to share with you today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parara Indonesian Ethical Store, PAIS. This restaurant and store is an initiative of the Parara Consortium, a civil society movement promoting local products that are safe and healthy for consumption, sustainable produce, and fairly trade. Next. Next, please. Parara is comprised of over 30 NGOs, cooperative, women association, social enterprise that support over 100 farmer groups, forest gatherer communities, small producer, and fisher folk. Here you see a photo collect of some of our partners and what they produce: organic rice, forest honey, fresh water, and seafood, and many more. Next, please. We came together in 2015 with the concept of the festival in the center of Jakarta to promote local products in a big ways. We have seen Head Festival every 2 years since then. Next, please. This is our vision and aims. Panen Raya Nusantara or Parara is a fair trade marketing platform and a movement that seeks to improve the welfare of Indonesian community producer by promoting product based on conservation, culture, and local tradition. Its business unit feature food, craft, personal care products that are healthy and safe for customer. Next, please. There are our core values. We local product give a fair products, and then we offer healthy product, and also we provide sustainable products. And next. On the screen, you can see the logos of all the Parara partners and our scope, more than 30 organization and supporting over 100 local producer, and they are promoting this core value is local, healthy, fair, and sustainable. Next. We also have the ambition to have Parara stores in major cities on different major islands of Indonesia. So as to highlight local food in the province where they are found and reduce carbon footprint to bring food to Jakarta. Next. This is our menu in restaurant. Parara Indonesian Ethical Store seeks to integrate local food into the diet of Indonesian consumer through healthy twist of familiar Indonesian meals and other non-Asian and Western dishes. These are example. These are example of sagu noodle replacing with noodles in the standard Italian carbonara with anchovy like fish from Sentar Sulawesi, and the Indonesian comfort food soto Banjar is from South Kalimantan. It's a chicken noodle soup variant. Next. And then this is a bamboo shoot. Bamboo shoot preservation by the Dayak Kanayat, West Kalimantan. Dayak Kanayat preserve bamboo shoot in 4 districts, Landak, Mempawah, Bengkayang, and Kuburaya. They have been assisted by Parara partner Yayasan Diantama. The dried bamboo shoot are called rabung, karing, or rabung, karing in the local language. They are used in daily meals during communal farming called balale, or paddy fields activities, and during gawe it's mean festival, and during weddings. There is still abundant stock. In daily meals, they are stir fried with coconut milk with chicken and spice. Shoot season from November to January, sometimes starting from August, depending on when rainy season start. Now uncertain to the change in weather patterns. They have 3 bamboo species. One is betung in the large in size, and then munti and tarek. They were planted a long time ago and grow in forest system. Next, please. This is the process of harvest and processing. Bamboo for edible shoot used in located in settlement rice fields, hillside, river banks, forest edge, and they can still be rich on food. They go into the forest in group of 4 until 5 people. Women and family members look for a bamboo clumps together. Often bamboo is found where there are lots of snakes, so going in group means better protection. During harvesting, there is a transfer of knowledge about the harvest process recognizing bamboo that can be harvested, recognizing the location, nurturing bamboo, and stimulating growth, thinning, and cleaning. After harvest, bamboo shoot can be harvested again after 3 until 5 days. Bamboo shoot at home, and they do clean, wash with clean water, separate shoot and stem, slice lengthwise, boil with bungkang leaves, it's flavoring leaves, local MSG, and salt until soft, drained, and dry in the sun. From firstthing to cooking or draining, it's done in 1 day. Next. After drying the bamboo shoot, they shrink about the 40 until 50%. When the bamboo shoot are ready to be cooked, they must first be soaked. Then they can be salted or cooked with coconut milk. Bamboo for the Kanayan people are important because they help protect water sources, prevent landslides. Bamboo is a part of traditional rituals used as building materials, handicraft materials, work tool, and also because they are sources of food. The next. In this Pararas use the bamboo shoot in the Javanese snack standard. Parara Indonesian Ethical Store it's called sosis solo from bamboo shoot, replacing the sauce with bamboo shoot, that making the dish all vegetarian. Next. Another wild fruit used in Parara cooking is wild raspberries. These are called kerben in Kerinci, West Sumatra. It's grown on shrub and young kids like it them for snack. The local community has already received a community forest permit from government. The next. In 2019, the NGO KKIWARSI assisted the development of jam from the raspberry and also helped the woman producer from the village Suko Pangkat to form a group. Next. Currently, the group that manages the wild raspberry jam production is the Social Forestry Business Unit Suko Suka. After successfully making wild raspberry jam, the Suko Suka are conducting trial on raspberry banana crackers and wild raspberry candy. But from all the product developed, the wild raspberry jam is the main product. The marketing of the wild raspberry jam is mostly within the local market. This is Parara experimenting with making purple yam, flour cake, and wild raspberry buttercream. We will show the video of making the raspberry buttercream after this presentation. So this comes to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. And if you come to Indonesia, please visit us in Kemang, and you can follow our IG in parara.id. Thank you very much. And then you can show the video. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy, for sharing with us about the Parara Indonesian Ethical Store. I see some questions already in the chat. And just to respond, as it will be taken up later. But for Parara, as mentioned by Tammy, there are 4 core values. And Parara has contracts with the suppliers, and to be able to trace how products are sustainable, meaning how they are harvested sustainably without harming other plants, other living forms, and polluting the environment, which you can ask Tammy more later, because now we have to move to another country, and which is a huge country on its own, but we only have one speaker today. So, but we know that they will share some rich information about what they've been doing as well with wild foods and with the indigenous people that they work with. So I take this moment now to introduce Pavitra Vasudevan from Keystone Foundation. I'm echoing, I think. Is it okay now? So Pavitra works on community health and wellness with Adivasi communities in the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. As a trained mental health professional, her work lies in the intersection of preventive mental health, nutrition, and traversing pathways to care in the context of Indigenous health. So Pavitra, I invite you to tell us more about the Nilgiris, about your wild foods, about health, and your story.
Yes, thank you. It's been really great to listen to all the presentations today. I'm going to share my screen, but before that, I would also like to talk about how we view slow food and wild foods a little differently in the organization where we're working, and to sort of think about how wild foods are placed with Indigenous communities where they belong, and how it's sort of slowly depleting. And how do we sort of also bridge the access gaps that exist these days? So I'm sharing my screen. Is it visible? Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So I'm going to talk about, when we talk about wild foods, what was usually food security for Indigenous communities, what it is right now, and how we are trying to bridge these gaps. So what we're going to look at is the approach in the NBR, local food and wellness, and how to think about food security and wellness when we're thinking about wild foods in the area. This is where we are located, the green part of these are our working areas, and this is what I'm representing today as our work as well. Right, so when we think about food security, this is a contrast of how it is these days. The approaches to food security after what became the PDS, it's complete, the Indigenous food has been replaced by a one-size-fits-all approach to food security, which means that there's no diversity in food. And this is sort of met through the public distribution system and all other systems that sort of target children and young adults. But this is a contrast of the two images are a contrast of what Indigenous communities usually eat. And you can actually see a big tuber that she's cooking over here. And this is what a traditional meal would also look like, where there's a lot of greens and there's ragi, and there's a little bit of milk, buttermilk, and two kinds of millets as well. So when we imagine wild foods in Indigenous communities, to also take the time to think about how it's moved from that, and how there's no access or restrictions sort of changed that to having a very rice-based diet, which they feel is not very healthy for them. So when we talk about, so this is a person, and then you can see how he's growing a lot of wild foods, and there's like corn, and this is a type of spinach. This is the diversity of land. But now there are very few farmers who grow millets, and the access to collect wild foods has also drastically reduced. So with the change in this practice, what has also happened is that they don't feel healthy. So they go about saying that how food used to be medicine, but it's not anymore. So even if there are traditional practices, they can't engage in them because there's a lot of chemicals in their body, which is again linking to the previous slide about how it's been replaced by one size fits all rice-based diet across the country. And this is an image of how a lot of women so still collect a lot of greens from their way back from work, but these greens are not something that they find in their fields anymore. It's not necessarily wild. It's something that is store-bought, or they collect from the plantations. So to sort of also to think about where all the traditional practices of collecting wild foods have gone missing. So as a way to sort of also think about wild foods in the communities over here, what we've been doing is to do wild food maps sort of with the communities to ask them to place where a particular kind of tuber is located in the year, or where they can find particular kinds of greens, and then to also take it back to the communities and to reinforce that knowledge in when they start planning their weekly meals. So instead of having 5 meals with rice, how can I supplement a portion of rice with a particular kind of tuber that's available in the season, or a particular kind of spinach that can be introduced. And by that, we are also trying to document what are some of the wild foods that are available in the area and the sources where they are available, and to make it more accessible. I'll show you some pictures of this documentation processes also. And something that we also understand from our experience is that how do we create spaces for triggers of memory to be able to access that knowledge, that comfort of eating food that is not very alien to them. And one way that we also engage with that idea is to think about transfer of knowledge from elders to the younger generation. And that's what we call as the village elder program, where the elders in the village go around with the youth of the community, and they collect seasonal produce, and they cook together. They sort of build recipes. They sort of talk about what's good about it, how it can prevent certain kind of illnesses, and sort of to have that conversation about how local food is healthy and to how to bring it back to their own practices as well. And if you can see, these are some of our approaches. You can see over here, these are very small portions of their meal, but they're more extensive. They've cooked a kind of tuber, and then there's few kinds of spinach, and then there's a particular kind of millet, ragi, and there's also some chutney that's made with certain spinaches that are available around the area. And so how do we sort of also, again, to talk about meal planning and how to make space again to include wild foods in their diet, and also to place memory triggers and reinforcements mostly for the younger generation as well, to sort of be used to a different kind of diet, which was mostly practiced by the elders earlier. And over here, you can see this interesting image of this young girl who's climbed up the tree to pick up some amla as well. So this is just to also, again, this is part of a transact walk that happens with the elders in the village to sort of locate where these wild foods are in their surroundings. This is another map to locate where what is available and sort of to document how it's healthy and what happens when you eat it. I'm going to give you a minute to look at this image. It's got a lot of content. These maps also become bilingual so that there's access for people in the community to go back to these maps and sort of locate where what grows. And these are two books that also talk about traditional medicine and what kind of tubers and spinach mostly that people eat for different kinds of ailments. And to sort of leaving you with the last thought of how when we talk about slow food, that's clean, sustainable food, we might also want to engage in a broader political structure of how there are large gaps in addressing these problems these days. And how can we create holistic pathways to achieving these in communities where it has already gone missing or it's very inaccessible at the moment. And these are four things that we think can make a difference to bring more food sovereignty in the areas where we are working. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Pavitra, for your very interesting presentation and visuals. Yeah, I will take a look later at that wild food map. And thanks for sharing the methods that you've been using, which I think would be interesting as well in terms of triggering memory, in terms of the village elder program, which is similar also to some of the programs that are being tried in different parts of Asia. But thank you for sharing your rich wild foods program from Keystone Foundation, and also since Keystone is as well as Slow Food Community. So we've had great presentations up to now. And I would like then to invite my colleague, Yusupta Tarigan, who will be facilitating the open forum. We hope we can still have 20 minutes for this important part. Yes, hi Jete, thank you for appearing at the right time. So now the floor is yours to facilitate our open forum.
Thank you, Chrissy, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Jete Yusupta Tarigan. I am an Executive Director of NTFP Indonesia, and thank you to my colleague Chrissy as a moderator and invite me as a co-moderator for a discussion this afternoon. So yeah, thank you for all speakers from that's very rich knowledge and also experience. I heard from Okinawa to India, yeah, and also Philippines and Indonesia. Yeah, I think yeah, there is some question either from Facebook as well as the chat. So I already make a summary of question. The first question is come from Elena from Italy, I think. Yeah, the question is to Dai. Yeah, before we open the forum, so I think we need to get a response from Dai. A question for Dai. During this week, it has been voiced that they are cautious to document or promote wild food or food used by indigenous community due to the fear of exploitation. Understanding this a real concern, can you explain why the Ainu decided to nominate product of art of taste product? So is it my voice clear, Chrissy? Because heavy rain here.
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think I invite Dai to give a response, Dai, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Yes, we discussed over this about we disclose our information, then we are always facing the fear of exploitation. But in Ainu, especially for the Sapporo city, the nature in the city is decreasing so much. So we wanted to raise the awareness that we actually need to think about how to preserve nature. But at the same time, we didn't actually we didn't really indicate the place and spots that Ainu people preserve the nature. So we tell the features and we tell the connection between Ainu and the nature, but we didn't really disclose the information where they can find. And at the same time, Japanese government is actually making profit out of tourism to highlight Ainu culture. So people start to eat Ainu food. So people start to plant Ainu food or discover where they can find it. So before they actually exploit without knowing those are the precious food, we took initiative to actually raise awareness. Those are precious things to Ainu. So like something like leave it for them, something like that. Am I answering correctly?
Yeah, I think you already answered that Elena already raised. Okay, the second question is come from Melanie Narciso. I think this question goes to Chin. There is a discourse that listing heritage, example, intangible cultural heritage, may be limiting in terms of conservation and may actually lead to commodification or invention of tradition not really reflective of the true heritage of the place. Has there been studies how the listing of Philippine wild food in the art of taste has impacted society consumption and behaviors towards this food? What do the studies reveal? Chin Chin?
Hi, thank you for the question. I don't think there's really a study that was really made about the effects of the but for me the it's really important to really document it to document this arc of taste ingredients because they are already disappearing. And if we are just always talking about it, for example, like in our case here, some of the farmers or the indigenous people in the upland areas, they just talk about these ingredients, but nothing is recorded, nothing is written. So in in the coming years, it will be just forgotten. And with commercialization and conventional agriculture, it will get lost. So I think the most important thing is to document it so that other people can also um, know it uses, and they could plant it, and then people will understand what's the and people will get to taste it. No, so if we don't record it, it will get lost in the it will be forgotten.
Thank
But
you,
in
Chin
terms of
Chin.
study, yeah, thank you. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Chin Chin. So uh, I hope so. So regarding this question, I also invite Dai or Elena. Maybe you can give a response, particularly in the impact of art of taste, because I know you have a lot of experience doing this work. Dai or Elena, please. Maybe I invite Dai first.
Yes. Thank you. I think Ramon actually answered correctly that documenting is one of the key factor that we need to do the Arc of Taste project, because without documenting it, people, the elders who know the actual culture will be gone at some point. So without documents, we will not have the opportunity to learn it. And also one of the great aspect of Arc of Taste project is when we document, when we taste, when we actually learn, we actually go to the elders and learn from it. So through this experience, yes, documenting and in the report or the archive taste catalog itself is very important, but the action to register the youth is going to ask to the elders their knowledge, their experience, their culture, or our culture is one of the most important aspect of the project. So learning through the project is one of the key aspects.
Thank you, Diane. Buongiorno, Elena. I invite you to give more perspective on this question. Please, Elena.
Thank you, JT. I was hoping that I could be a silent observer here today. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elena. I work for Slow Food, based in Italy. In sequence to what Ramon and I have mentioned, and the reason why I asked the question for the exploitation, as seen or perceived by Indigenous communities or communities in general, is that the Archive Taste is a catalogue. It's not a working project as such. It's a catalogue to identify the loss of biodiversity. Okay, food biodiversity that's connected to culture and to a place. Okay, so with that, it's the first tool that Slow Food uses in regards to, from a mapping, biodiversity mapping perspective that Pavitra has mentioned. They do mapping. Slow Food does biodiversity mapping. So it's not just one product as such. Everything that's been discussed this week has been about food biodiversity. An Archive Taste is about a product that is being lost due to a change in a culture, that food is no longer being used or it's being supplemented by something that's from a globalization perspective, or it's being lost that it's no longer found. So it's from an environmental perspective, but also a cultural perspective. Okay, so in that, when a community that may be Indigenous community or may not be an Indigenous community, there is a food at risk of being lost or forgotten, not used by that community anymore, it's identified and can be nominated as an Archive Taste product. So it's connected to a place, a people, and a product. With that, it's identified on the catalogue, Slow Food International catalogue. What we've found internationally is that by identifying it internationally, it brings more interest to the local communities, that there's an international interest in this. Okay, it then has the connection of young people wanting to be more involved or understand more about their culture and understand more about their food. So what Di and Ramon have mentioned previously, the idea is to get the young interested in this. Okay, the Archive Taste catalogue is a way that can achieve that, because all the young mostly want to be Western. Okay, so it's taking it out to take it back in, to say that there's an interest internationally in that food. From that Archive Taste, we then move into different slow food projects that look at biodiversity mapping, working with producers and working with producers, but also, as Di mentioned, raising awareness with consumers. Okay, I don't think the issue at this moment in time is that it's exploited. My concern is more that it's going to be lost. I don't think we're at that stage yet that all foods in forests are going to be commercialized. The interest is not there at this moment in time. It is from my view, from where I sit. Thank you.
Thank you, Gracie, Elena. Yeah, there's also some question, and the question goes to Toto. There is a two simple question, but I'm thinking the answer will be long. The first question is Saleng resin greenish? And the second, is lekwas the same or related to galangal? This is, I think, Tagalog specific. Please, Toto.
Yes, like what I've said earlier, lakwas or langkawas is the same
Would you louder, please, Toto?
Um, can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Okay. So as what I've said earlier, langkawas or lakwas is the same as galanjal. So galanjal is the English name of lakwas. And yes, actually, salang has a greenish hue, but much darker. It depends on the refinement.
Thank you, Toto. We are still in the Philippine context, so there is also a question from Facebook. I think Chinchin or Toto can answer. Where wild food or seed are available to purchase in the Philippines? Start with Chinchin.
I'm sorry. What's the question?
Where wild food seed to purchase
Seeds.
in wild
Seeds.
seeds. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's available. You should actually, if I you can get in touch with the farmers or the indigenous community that grows them, or that I'm sure they would know where they would have those seedlings or planting materials that can be propagated. For example, like what we do is we when we visit a place, there's a lot of wild foods or arc of taste. Like example in Cebu, we partnered with the community there, the slow food community that grows this millet, this kabog millet. So it's famous for it's really good to make as budbud kabog. So the Cebuanos told me that when the Spaniards came here in the Philippines, that's what they served the Spaniards. So that millet, they gave us the seeds and taught us how to, because their goal also is to propagate it. So we got the seeds from them and then we planted it here and it grew well here. So I think the best person to get it from is the farmers or the indigenous people community.
Thank you, Chinchin. Is there any information from you, Toto?
Um, for us, like for example, the paray. So I don't think that it is for sale. So it is not for sale. But you can buy the final products, like for example, the what we call the kaingin rice. You can buy the final product, but I don't think that the seeds uh, uh, are available in the market. But the other ones, like for example, the kamotes, they are widely available here in the Philippines. So I don't think that there will be problem acquiring them. But when it comes to those, like for example, the heirloom rice, they are only exclusive for the people inside the tribe.
Thank you, Chinchin and Toto. So the next question is come from Prerna Garg, a founder and director of a dialogue. The question is, we do immersions in the rural and remote regions of India to document traditional ecological knowledge embedded in the social cultural scenarios of India. Some of our initiatives are agrobiodiversity, reviving wild ancient grains, phenological observation, climate change initiative. We see a synergy in the concepts you were talking about, and we'll be happy to talk to you. And the table is yours, Pavitra.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be great to collaborate and see how we can build efforts to consolidating all the content that we have across the country.
Yeah. Okay, and the next question I think is for all speakers, and I will invite Pavitra to answer first. While it is good to promote these local foods for the sake of preserving heritage and culture, but I am just a bit confused also as to how this will actually help the preservation and conservation of the plants and animals they were derived from. If these food products become produced, won't that also endanger the plants and animals species as well? Pavitra,
Yeah.
your respond.
I think that is a very valid question when we also think about climate change and its adversities that most of the biodiversity in a region faces. But I would also imagine that communities that sort of manage these areas, they're very linked to nature. So there's always been the experience of knowing where to stop and when to stop, collecting a certain kind of produce, or like it's also inbuilt with most communities that some kind of knowledge or that the species be contained in a particular area for it to thrive and survive. So while capitalist marketing is something that's driving us on one side, I think the cohesion and the community knowledge and how and these decisions and the agency that these communities hold also become very important in these fields to sort of balance the outcome of this situation.
Thank you, Pavrita. And yeah, I invite Chin Chin for Chin Chin.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, if this food product become mass produced, won't that also endanger the plants and animal species as well? Because we're talking about the promoting, preserving heritage, etc.
Yeah, I think um it's better to have a lot of it than, like as what Elena said, than the plant getting lost. No, and for example, if people will experience the taste of it, and then I think they would really try to plant it. No, if there's a demand for it, what farmers will do is they would plant it, and then it will be it's better to have a lot than to have than to than to have nothing at all. No, so that's why it's very important to it's also, you have to balance it. You have to balance the and how to do it sustainably.
Thank you, Chin Chin and Prefita. So the host already remind me that we only have 4 minutes. So the important question. I think this is the last question. It's from Luna Muni. I think this question goes to all Philippine speakers. The question is, here in the Philippines, there has been news of converting ancestral lands for 100,000 hectares of sorghum plantation for cattle feed. What are ways and means to avoid this situation? So I invite all of Pinoy, all of colleagues from Philippines. Chin Chin, Toto, please.
For me, I haven't heard of this yet, but so I think one of the best ways to avoid this kind of situation is, of course, like being part of these activities. Like for example, by being part of these activities, we create awareness to other people that these forest foods, indigenous foods that we have is vital and very important for the continuation of our culture, our traditions. Therefore, by creating awareness, we also invite support from the outside world. To continually empower the people within the ancestral lands so that we can easily repel these kind of interventions, destructive interventions.
Mhm. Thank you, Toto. So even this question asking about the Philippine situation, but also I would like to hear different perspective from India and also from DAI or related speakers. So Pavitra, I do have thoughts on this.
Could you repeat? Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the question is, in the Philippines, there has been news of converting ancestral lands for 100,000 hectares of sorghum plantation for cattle feed. So the question, what are ways and means to avoid this situation? Maybe you have a similar experience in India.
That's right. Like we do see that a lot of the land use over here has changed in the country, and especially in areas where there are a lot of indigenous communities where they reside. I think one way that sort of is slowing, but not stopping, but slowing the process of this erratic development to change land use practices is very strong community processes. One thing that helps in India is also the governance processes of securing their land rights, which sort of entitles the land to indigenous communities, and sort of developing narratives and policies towards securing their lands. That's helping right now, but then that is again a larger place for discussion. But I think in smaller ways to sort of also bring it to light, to push for advocacy is one way that I think could help with such land use changes, and also to talk to communities about taking agency over how they would imagine their landscape to be and how they would want to invest in it. So I think agency and political transformation are the two ways that I could think of addressing these issues.
Thank you, Pavita. And the last thoughts, I invite Dai before I pass to Diana. Please, Dai.
Thank you. I think it's really important question, and I think most of the indigenous groups are facing the same situation. One of the key element that we can actually use is, I think maybe everybody knows about this, but we know that we all indigenous people have the rights, and there is a declaration about rights of indigenous peoples. And in here, it says indigenous peoples have the rights to the lands. This is about the land rights articles. So we need to use this rights to stop the exploitation of the lands. And also we have the rights to FPIC, free, prior, informed, and consent. So I don't know who is actually leading this convert of the land, but if it's the one who is actually doing from outside, we can ask for like the assessment, also for the forecast of how the land will be changed and what kind of impact to the biodiversity in the area, so that they need to show it will be okay to do it, so that we have the rights to ask for it. So that can slow down, I would say.
Thank you, Dai. Thank you, Chin. Thank you, Pavitra, Toto, Tami, Elias, and other speaker I forgot to mention. So, and yeah, since time is up, so I give back the decision to Diana for the reflection. Diana.
Yeah, thank you, Yete. Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Sanose, and I'm with the Non-Timber Forest Products Exchange Program in Asia. I'm also the communications focal point for this initiative, the Wild Foods, Biodiversity, and Livelihoods Network Expert Group. So thank you again to all of our wonderful speakers for sharing your inspiring stories and messages. In a world so fast and volatile and uncertain, a lot of us have felt the need to slow down and reassess our values and ways of living, particularly how we choose to consume our. This event showcased best practices and lessons towards a more sustainable way of producing, marketing, and consuming food that is not only clean, fair, and fresh, but is also, as we saw in the videos and in the presentations, really, really good. It's such a pity that we can't have a taste of these wild and slow foods that we just saw from India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So I guess we'll have to make do, at least for now, by feasting with our eyes instead of our tongues. But hopefully, in the near future, we can gather together in person and have a taste of these wild and slow foods that we just talked about. It is our hope, though, however, that through this event, your interest was piqued and that you got inspired by the messages of hope from the local initiatives in Asia, that showcase the richness of our food systems and our biodiversity. In organizing this event, in partnership with Siani, the Slow Food Networks in India, Indonesia, the Philippines, and also the NTFP-EP network, it was really our intention that this gathering not end as we close the Zoom room, but rather extend even beyond this event. And already we have heard lots of ideas and recommendations on how we can collaborate further moving forward. So as we close, I just wish to highlight and synthesize a few key points and recommendations that have been raised during this gathering for future networking of this growing network of advocates for slow food, wild foods, biodiversity, and sustainable community-based livelihoods. There has been an observation that food has been delinked from nutrition and culture, and that knowledge about wild and local foods are in decline. The need to counteract mainstream influences that make people forget tastes and tradition were raised. But hope is found and rekindled after hearing these stories from our speakers today. From the highlands of Krayan in Indonesia to the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve in India, and in even the urban city centers like in Jakarta, where Parara is based, we saw very real and inspiring local initiatives that make us see how the future of food can really be slow and sustainable if only we live up to the values that have been discussed during this event. From Dai, from Okinawa, we learned about slow food and the slow food movement, how this grassroots organization has evolved into a global movement spanning lots of different countries. Their vision is that people have access to good and clean food and that people are able to enjoy these as well. We saw, and it was mentioned, the Arc of Taste catalog is a way in which we can document the foods that are slowly disappearing, not just in our ecosystems, but also in the memory and traditions of the people where these local foods are found. I liked what he mentioned that protecting biodiversity can also help us save the climate crisis. And then from Chinchin or Ramon Uy Jr. of Negros Island in the Philippines, we learned about batuan, a local souring agent, which they now use to make lots of creative cuisines and dishes, even gin. So hope we can try that someday. And he also talked about turmeric, kadios, heirloom cacao, and even a type of native chicken that is part of the Arc of Taste catalog. They're also very active in documenting many other wild foods in Negros and involving the youth as they do so. So the slow food community in Negros Island, as well as in the other countries, continue to promote, preserve, and enliven traditional food in their region. Meanwhile, from Toto Colili of Palawan, we learned about fruits, spices, and other things that they have that show the biodiversity that is present in their region. Wild foods and other NTFPs are used for subsistence, food, recreation, and of course, their livelihoods. Toto, a youth leader himself, which I met and I saw their very beautiful place in Amas Brooks Point, is an example of how the energy and the knowledge of youth can continue um, to to help sustain the traditions that we have around local foods and wild foods. I liked what he said that um, uh, the youth plays a very important role in sustaining indigenous food systems because knowledge transfer must be ensured so that the continuity of these food systems are would continue to happen. And then in northern Kalimantan, Indonesia, we met the Krayan Slow Food Community, Paelyas, shared about their commitment to promote traditional cuisine, local earth markets, and building skills of their farmers and local um, producers. He said that traditional agriculture can be a model of environmentally friendly practice for the future. We also met our friend Tami from the Panen Raya Nusantara or Parara, a fair trade marketing platform and movement that seeks to improve the welfare of Indonesian community producers and civil society. Their core values, like the core values of our other speakers, talk about local, healthy, fair, and sustainable food. Theirs is an example of the power of a collective to raise consciousness and gather energy and support from not just people in the communities, but also those in urban centers who want to be advocates of local foods and wild foods themselves. And then finally, Pavitra of Keystone Foundation shared how they view slow and wild foods a little differently. She raised the question, how should we view wild foods and how can they be placed back in indigenous communities where they belong? How do we bridge the access gap that exists these days? So she pointed out that a one size fits all approach is not the way to go, as this neglects the diversity that is found in wild foods and the traditional food systems that we have. And we also saw in her example how food is viewed as medicine, but it is slowly disappearing, and people are now asking, where are these foods? The use of chemicals and pesticides in the food systems that we have now has also delinked nutrition from our food systems. And with all of those rich sharings, we now get to ask ourselves, so what do we do now? What is our way forward? One idea that was raised was to take this work beyond South and Southeast Asia, gather more communities and have more conversations about how we can promote, sustain, and support our wild foods and traditional food systems. An idea for a collaboration was also raised. How about a possible Asia Indigenous Arc of Taste, emphasizing places, people, and product in the different regions? And Elena Aniere also said that sometimes it takes a little bit of putting it out into the international sphere for the youth and other local communities to have a renewed perspective on their own wild foods and traditional food systems. So hopefully this interest will continue to grow. And then, of course, there were suggestions on how we should document these food systems before it disappears and before it's too late. Toto and Pavitra also reminded us of the importance of intergenerational knowledge transfer. And how do we ensure that the knowledge about wild foods aren't lost? Finally, there has been a lot of talk on how we could further promote and raise awareness about the vibrancy of these traditional food systems and the diversity found in the Asian region. We must nurture an understanding and strengthen networks of activists and partnerships here in Asia and also the world. So although our session is now coming to an end, we invite you to please continue to collaborate with all of us gathered here. It's very nice to see everyone from different places around the world, and we do hope that our networking and our partnerships don't end in this Zoom room, but rather continue even beyond. And seeing the stories and hearing from you all and the activity in the chat box, I think, is a testament of how there are still a lot of us who are interested in really reviving this movement. And we do hope to see you and meet you again very, very soon. And with that said, let me now officially close the Foods, Biodiversity, and Livelihoods Network virtual forum. We have started since the 8th of March, and this is the final event of the whole forum. And before we close, may we just invite everyone in the room to turn on their video cameras. If we can have a group picture taking to commemorate and celebrate this event, because truly there is a lot of things that we should celebrate, especially seeing how vibrant our food systems are in the region. So I see that everyone is now turning on their cameras. And please do so if you can. Let me now call in Christina to give us the cue for our picture taking. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Diana. All right, everyone, I'll give you a couple more minutes just to turn on your videos. And then please hold your poses. All right, I'll take the first one now. 1, 2, smile. Second page, 1, 2, 3, smile. I'll take another one for good measure. Hold your poses. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right.
Yay, thank you everyone. If this were a real event, this is the part where all of us would now be eating and drinking and just celebrating. But for now, if you have your own wild foods on your table or on your plate, maybe you can show them on screen. And maybe just take a moment to say hi to everyone in the room. Yes, Dai said singing and dancing. So we welcome if anyone wants to sing or dance, you're more than welcome to do so. Yes, so we'll be posting the results, the documentation of this forum on the virtual forum website, wildfoodsasia.com, and we'll also be sending you an email just in case you want to review the documentation notes and and get your pictures from our photo sessions during the week. Ms.
I saw,
Femi, sorry?
Elias
Yeah?
would like bamboo flute.
Oh yeah. Well, can he? Pa Elias, silakan.
He's out. Hmm.
Pa Elias, you're on mute. Okay.
Yeah. Going to play? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pa Elias. As you can see, his video was freezing, but the music was playing on. So let's continue to let the music, this new music of slow food and wild food, to continue in our future conversations. I just like to say, Pa Elias, if this was live, he usually has like about 30 different bamboo instruments, and he has each person play a different one. So if we were all together, we would all be having different instruments in our hands and being an orchestra of beautiful slow food, wild food music. Please use your imagination as we close this session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pa Elias.
Thank you, Pa Elias. Terima kasih.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Bye.
All the
Bye.
speakers to slow
Bye,
food.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy. Eat wisely.
Hi, Ate Rika.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Diana.
Hi.
Tammy, Diana is going to practice your
Yeah.
cooking, your recipe on this weekend. That's what she said. So we'll wait for you. We'll wait for your video.
Maybe just a picture. I'll
IG.
send it to you, Tammy.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. Also to Insight Pack.
Thank you to all interpreters and Insight
All the
Pack.
interpreters.
Congratulations.
All the recorders. Topher, and I don't see all the names. Arnie, whoever else is recording as well. This is quite an operation of like, I don't know, 30 or people behind this. Thank you to everybody. To
Okay.
Grant also,
Bye-bye.
Ruth. Take care, stay safe. Wild
Yes,
foods. Wild foods
bye-bye.
is the best medicine. Slow food is the best medicine. Remember hearing that today. Bye-bye. Hi, Edna.
Hi.
I didn't see you. Did you just join now?
No, no, I was here, except that my signal is unstable. But I was here from the very start. So it's kind of like my radio, all the webinars. I did try to attend everything, and except yesterday pala.
If I had seen you earlier, we would have directed the questions about the sorghum plant, the 100,000 hectares of sorghum
Oh yeah,
plantation
I
your
remember.
way.
No, I remember. Yeah, I remember there was a question of like that. I said, I had a lot of comments, but then nawala ako bigla. So anyway, then but
you can still write us.
Sige, I can respond to that.
And Edna, our next forum is the Forest Harvest Community-Based NTFP Enterprise Forum in June. So Forest Harvest Collective, Mark, will be back to you.
Oo nga. Wait, ano na nga palang status na? Sorry, I'm so lost. I'm so lost lately, like, oh my God, like, serious. So I think I have this mental challenge of working in isolation. Oh my God. Anyway.
Okay. Find a park and some open space. Get outside. Like
no.
Pa Elias, he's always outside. When will we make it to the Krayan, Pa Elias?
Yeah, I'm taking a walk, and then walking up and down the overpass near me.